Wara r-riżenja ta' Theresa May minn Downing Street f'Mejju, minħabba li l-pjan ta' Brexit tagħha ma rendix sapport mill-Parlament Ingliż, Boris Johnson, l-eks Sindku ta' Londra u l-eks Ministru għall-Affarijiet Barranin, rebaħ it-tellieqa sabiex isir il-Prim Ministru Ingliż ġdid. Boris Johnson kaxkar ir-rivali tiegħu l-eks Segretarju għall-Istat tal-Affarijiet Barranin Jeremy Hunt sabiex rebaħ it-tellieqa għall-kap tal-Partit Konservattiv b'fiduċja ta' 66%. Minkejja li forsi l-medja internazzjonali ħalqet immaġni u narrattiva komika u negattiva ta' Boris Johnson, il-Ministru tal-Affarijiet Barranin Carmelo Abela saħaq fuq il-kapaċità ta' Johnson.
Lilin mill-apparenza tiegħu ħanajdu hekk huwa persuna li huwa intelligenti, jaf x'inhu x-xogħol tiegħu, dak huwa l-assessment tiegħi għall-inqas personali. Persuna li forsi ma jfittix wisq il-formalità imma mill-ewwel tista' tibni relazzjoni anki pjuttost friendly miegħu.
Mistoqsi jekk ir-relazzjoni ta' Malta mar-Renju Unit issa tkun affettwata b'Johnson fit-tmum tal-pajjiż, Abela saħaq li din mhux ħadd inbidel u r-relazzjoni ta' Malta ma' pajjiżi l-bogħod minn xtutna hija waħda bilaterali rispettivament min qiegħed imexxi l-pajjiż.
Aħna nħarsu lejn relazzjonijiet bilaterali bejn pajjiż u pajjiż, jiġifieri Malta u r-Renju Unit f'dal każ. Il-determinazzjoni tal-Gvern Malti anke kif espressa mill-Prim Ministru Joseph Muscat innifsu u anke jien kemm il-darba wkoll irrepetejta hija aħna nixtiequ li nkomplu bl-aqwa relazzjonijiet mar-Renju Unit, nixtiequ wkoll li jkollna l-aqwa relazzjonijiet ma' kull pajjiż ieħor, irrispettivament minn min qed imexxi l-pajjiż, dak huwa d-dover tagħna bħala Gvern Malti li aħna nfittxu l-aqwa u l-aħjar relazzjonijiet mal-pajjiżi rispettivi. Naturalment dik ħad tibqa' l-mira tagħna anke fejn għandu x'jaqsam ir-Renju Unit.
Boris Johnson li huwa wieħed minn dawk li mexxew il-kampanja sabiex ir-Renju Unit jitlaq mill-Unjoni Ewropea, mistenni iwetta r-rieda ta' dawk li votaw favur il-kampanja tiegħu waqt ir-referendum. Bl-ewwel tweet tiegħu tisħaq li ser ikun qed jaħdem sabiex jaqqat il-pajjiż, jara li jseħħ Brexit u jirbaħ kontra Jeremy Corbyn. Dan saħħ ukoll waqt l-indirizz tiegħu lill-membri tal-Partit Konservattiv wara li rebaħ it-tellieqa għall-kap tal-partit. Il-Ministru Abela saħaq li biex tingħata idea ċara kif se tkun qed tiżvolġi s-sitwazzjoni Brexit, wieħed irid jagħti ċans lil Boris Johnson jiffurma l-kabinett u n-nies tiegħu.
Jien naħseb wieħed irid jistenna ftit aktar, ġifieri għadu fil-bidu net naħseb jiena ħaġa tagħmel kampanja u ħaġa tmexxi. Jiġifieri naħseb jiena għadu still early to say.
X'ħajkun l-effett ta' Boris Johnson? L-Ingilterra u r-Renju Unit ħajjeħdu tisbita jew ħajissaħħu iktar minn qatt qabel?
Grazzi tal-li bqajtu maħna, nfakkaw konna tiraw Xtra fl-ewwel parti tal-programm konna tinħarsu lej Center Link. Issa maħna il-Kummissarju Oli Ingliż sa' Renju Unit. Thank you for being with us. This is the second time in a row that we have an ambassador, a representative in our program. I think it's quite interesting also to give some space also to allow us to learn something about your work here in Malta. Thank you for being with us. My first question is, Boris Johnson, new Prime Minister, newly appointed Prime Minister. What has changed, or has anything changed?
Well, you said it yourself, Saviour. We have a new Prime Minister, and we've had a Conservative Party leadership contest which has gone on for some weeks. We've known for a while that Theresa May was going to leave. We have a new Prime Minister, we have a new Cabinet. At the time we are speaking now in this recording, I think they're probably just about coming to the end of their first Cabinet meeting, so it's early days. The dynamic may change. Mr. Johnson, the Prime Minister, yesterday gave a very, very clear and a speech brimming with optimism about what will happen in the next few weeks and months running up to the 31st of October. And some things haven't changed. We have a withdrawal agreement, which the previous government, under Theresa May, agreed with the European Union. But that agreement did not command a majority in the House of Commons. And so we have a situation now where the Prime Minister has made very clear that we shall leave on the 31st of October, one way or another. And he looks to the European Union not to close the doors on this, not to be inflexible, because there are elements of that withdrawal agreement which need to be changed. So he's made clear he needs a better deal.
There is obviously a perception. We live in a world of perceptions. We have perceptions about about the Maltese, about the English, about the British. And the perception is that Boris Johnson, as you said, the dynamic may change. But Boris Johnson described by Donald Trump as Britain Trump, rather comical comment, I would say. But beyond all that, Boris Johnson also was described by Foreign Minister Carmelo Abela, Maltese Foreign Minister, as someone who is not what is portrayed by the media, someone comical, but someone who is rather intelligent, also quite focused in his work. You mentioned dynamic. What do you mean when you mean the dynamic might change? What will change? Is it the implementation process, the way decisions are taken?
Well, he's a new Prime Minister. I mean, you said yourself, you know, he's different. You know, he's a different approach. He didn't agree with the previous Prime Minister's approach, and there are members of his party that didn't agree with that approach. And he's coming in to find a way that we can leave the European Union in an orderly way. That's what he wants to do. And if that's not possible, then we will leave without a deal. But he will go into this with optimism. He will talk to our European Union partners, and he will make that attempt. And the no-deal thing is an important point. If there is not an agreement by the 31st of October, and you heard the Prime Minister say yesterday, if the European Union refuses to change the deal, then we will leave with no deal. It's not what he wants, but that is where we go. Remember, the legal default position in the House of Commons, the law says that we shall leave either with a deal or without a deal. And that would have to change. The government would have to change that for that to stop.
You obviously talk about the fact that come what may, 31st October and Britain is out of the European Union. Deal or no deal. There is a probability that there will not be a deal. There will not be a deal. There is this possibility. And that would not be in the interests of both parties. Do you have a view about this, or is it difficult for you to express a view about
this? Well, I serve my government of the day, and the Prime Minister yesterday made very clear that he wants a deal, and he's talked about the need for an orderly exit. But he is determined that we leave one way or another to fulfil, again, what he mentioned yesterday, the decision of the British people to leave the European Union without a deal, if that's what we are forced to do, which is why a lot more preparation on top of what we had done already running up to the previous deadline will be done between now and the 31st of October. So we are ready for that possibility.
Let's see. Let's have a look at the relations with Malta, because beyond all this, though we may be interested in what happens, you know, in the House of Commons, at the end of the day, Malta thinks it's the center of the world. We also believe at the end of the day that it's only our interest. How will things change for Malta? There is this tradition, right? There's a tradition between the Maltese government, Malta, and Britain, which hasn't soured. But to a certain extent, we have missed an opportunity of finding an ally in the European Union. In terms of foreign policy, in terms of export, import, in terms of exchange programs, how will the two countries continue to cultivate this long tradition?
Look, Xavier, you made a really important point, and for me as British High Commissioner to Malta, it's right at the top of my list that whatever happens in Brexit, the relationship that we have will go on not just as before, but even more strong than it has before. It goes without saying how deep our relationship is. It's long, it's historic, it's close in terms of trade and families. That's a really important thing too. There's lots of connections like that. And we do think alike, and we think alike inside the EU, and we will think alike on pretty much everything outside, when we are outside the European Union. And I think not only will we maintain our relationship, that we will work together to make it deeper and stronger, because we now need to look at the big issues. You talked about foreign policy. Now, some people have said to me, you know what, we'll just go back to the days when Malta was not a member and the Brits were members of the European Union, and we'll just do it in reverse. No, that's 15 years ago. And a lot's changed since then. Malta has changed, the UK has changed, the world and the threats to us, to our people, to our prosperity, have changed. And so we need to work much more closely together on all of those things as well. And it's not as if we will leave the European Union and then start thinking about those things. We do those already, both within a context of our joint membership of the EU, but also things like illicit finance, organised crime. You know, we've been doing some work together on that because these are shared problems.
But there has been, as you say, a long tradition, and we all know about long tradition. I mean, thousands of Maltese have studied in Britain. As you say, thousands of Maltese have family connections, have spent part of their life growing up in Britain, and vice versa. We also have many British who have set up home in Malta. But we seem to have lost this synergy between the two countries. When we come to certain things like, for example, you mentioned security, there seems to be more of a relationship with sometimes with the Americans, with the Italians. Would there be an interest, you think, that for example, for example, security issues, which is something which I think will be at the top of the agenda for Boris Johnson, there will be closer relations? Do you think there would be something of the sort?
Yeah, look, we haven't lost it, Xavier, and I dispute that. Our relationship with the European Union as a whole, which of course includes Malta, on the security side, we have said over and over again, is an unconditional partnership. We're not going to turn our back on the security issues that affect the European Union. I think that goes pretty much as read now. And that includes Malta, you know, whether it's things like Libya, like illicit finance, all these other things. We do need to make sure that we are working together on this. And to further dispute your point about having lost this,
well, I didn't say we lost it, but it isn't maybe as aggressive as before.
No, but it gives me a handle anyway. And we talked about the Brits here, the Maltese in the UK, and the family ties and the educational exchanges. And we've got at least 30,000, probably more, Maltese who live in the European Union. Now, the Prime Minister yesterday reiterated the guarantee that Theresa May had given that whatever happens on Brexit, the rights will be protected. The rights of those Maltese citizens and all EU citizens, over 3 million of them, will be guaranteed in the United Kingdom. And the same has been done here. Now, we as a British government can't guarantee the rights of British citizens in a foreign country, but we can appeal to those governments, and we've had discussions with the Maltese government, and they have said, in fact, Joseph Muscat himself said he wanted Malta to be the most Brit-friendly member state there is. And he and his government have put in place legislation with the same protections for the 15, 20,000 Brits that live here. So, again, I know you dispute it, but it's not being lost. It's actually being reinforced.
We have the last 2 minutes, and it's going to be a very quick question for me, which I'm renowned for having very long-winded questions. But the question, last week I had the American charge d'affaires in my program, Mark A. Shapiro. I put in the A because it's a very American thing of having, and we had quite a frank discussion. I asked him a particular question about a process in the United Nations regarding a call for the veto of 2 Maltese individuals to the Security Council, which was supported by the US and Britain, particularly US and Britain. On the security level, especially with regard to the Libya issue, how close is Britain to Malta in exchanging information, data, help?
Look, the particular case is a good example where Malta said to us, we would like to do this and we would like your support. And we gave it, and there was no question about it. Our 2 governments talk about a lot of security things, whether it's Libya or other issues. So that dialogue goes on between me and the government, between my team, between our agencies. So that is an ongoing process all the time. You know, we may not necessarily shout about it in the media, but these dialogues are there all the time.
Very, very quick question before we close. Do you think that that your mission here in Malta, your mission in the sense that your office, your High Commission, will take a more important role, a more high-profile role than before, in the sense that you are seeking to open the doors even further towards a new country which is openly, as you stated, declared it wants to be the most Brit-friendly of all the EU states?
I mean, I think our profile is pretty good already. Our access into government and to all aspects of Maltese community and society is very, very good. But I think as we move into that sort of new post-Brexit bilateral period, all these extra things I've talked about will give us more to do with the Maltese government, with the Maltese people. And yeah, I think you're going to see more of me.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being so frank about things. I would have loved you to obviously spill the beans on certain things, but I think that is not expected of the British High Commissioner. Mana il-Kummissarju All-Ingliż għal-Renju Unit, mhux għall-Ingilterra. Illum tkellimna dwar il-Central Link, tkellimna dwar Boris Johnson, kunu mara nhar il-ħamis inkomplu nitkellmu dwar l-attwalità. Dejjem fuq TVM fid-9:10, repetizzjoni fuq l-online sowa ta' TVM u kif ukoll tal-motoday.com.mt. Nirringrazzjakom il-lejl tajjeb.